So joining today is Tonya Lester, psychotherapist, social worker, and you got an upcoming book entitled Be Difficult. And just to give the audience a backstory, finally getting this thing recorded has been difficult.
Yeah. It's been difficult. Yeah, exactly.
We've had all kinds of snafus, internet issues, tech issues, schedule issues, but it's finally great to get back with you, girl.
Great to be here. Thanks so much.
So there's a lot of different ways we can go with this, but the easiest one to start with, I think, in my mind, is just the idea of being difficult, because that kind of goes counter to, because you're basically saying invite conflict, invite tension in some ways. So unpack that for me.
I'm saying invite and lean into healthy conflict, right? So 100% be difficult doesn't mean being impossible. That's a distinction I make in the book. It doesn't mean being mean, or selfish, right? But it's this idea that sometimes we really over accommodate and carry a lot of resentment. And there is, when we finished, the part of the segment we did last time, we talked a little bit about how it divides into gender. And so it's encouraging healthy, empathetic, open communication and allowing productive disagreements to be part of the way you dialogue in the world, with your partner, but where it's the norm to bring up hard things. So that's what I'm advocating for. Mm-hmm.
And that's totally on board with that. I think that's a great path to think about, the idea, what maybe you hear this too with couples you work with or people you live with. Oh, we never fight. That's not a badge of honor.
No, I really, if a couple says they never fight, that is a huge red flag. To me, it says we don't really know how to communicate. And at least one of us isn't really being fully seen in our relationship, because if two people are fully seen, differences should come up. Right. And that's how we get to know each other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a similar, on a different vein of, anytime I hear somebody when we're talking about family of origin and they tell me, oh no, I had a great upbringing. That's a red flag to me. Cause it's like, wait, nobody has a great one. There's always something in there that can wreak havoc. And it doesn't mean it's major trauma. And it doesn't also mean that conflict is it's kind of like what we're talking about here, that, we can agree on a lot of things. And so the conflicts aren't real huge, but there should be some tension there because you're two separate individuals trying to create something that you both want. And those aren't always the same thing.
That's right. And if we think about a long relationship, certainly with a spouse, but even with like a sibling, right? If we look at the family of origin stuff, things are going to come up, right? Because we are all hopefully developing people through time, that we're changing. Right. I just had, my 24th wedding anniversary, and I am not the person I was when I met my husband so many years ago, right? And neither is he, right? And part of loving each other is working to adapt, and inevitably you're gonna have some sharp edges around that.
Yeah. And that fits into the mantra that marriage is designed to help us grow up. That's what we believe, that it helps smooth the rough edges, because I'm in a relationship, and
that's right.
That's gonna happen. So let's go with let's kind of pivot slightly. You're talking about the idea of being difficult and having healthy difficulty or healthy conflict, healthy disagreements. What are signs of not healthy? Let's start there, because I think that helps. Let's label some of them. You got a couple of different labels. I've got them written down, so if they don't come up in the dialogue, I'll bring them up too. Okay,
sounds good. So, there's all the classic, if you're attacking someone, a lot of, we therapists are always saying, start with I, stick with your own experience. And the reason is because, of course, if it's you're doing this or you're doing that, or you make me feel this way, that's probably not going to be very productive. what we want to do is invite the other person into our experience, which is sharing vulnerably what something is like for you, right? That's first. And then of course you can move on to setting boundaries and working together to set expectations. But in general, where I find people really go off the rails is when they've been collecting evidence and creating a case against their partner in their head. So by the time they say something, they're ready to go in a court of law in front of judge and jury and convict their partner. Mm-hmm. If you're so uncomfortable with being straightforward that it's coming out through passive aggression or acting out, right? It's like we tell children, use your words. We can also tell adults, use your words. Like when we notice that someone is kind of being iced out or, sometimes I'll see couples who will kind of throw all their energy and affection into their children as opposed to honoring, the foundational relationship to the family and, which of course isn't good for your kids for one thing, but it's easy to turn our focus away from our partner. And sometimes when there's a lot of anger or resentment that's built up over time, I think that can be kind of a coping mechanism and a little bit of a passive aggression, like see all this love I have to give, but you don't get it. Right. These other little people do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and that's I guess what you're describing here, Tonya, is it's degrees, right? That we can go really far on something because even the people that have more of a bent towards, we'll talk it out. I mean, because that's the one thing I see in my practice all the time is whoever it was that was raised in a family that talked it all out right then and there married somebody that didn't.
That's right. Isn't that funny? We find each other.
Yep. And part of it is because, finally, it's something different. This will be great. And then they're like, wait, when you come at me, you've got everything already. You got a PowerPoint presentation ready to go. I don't operate that way. And so it's learning, I guess, how to accommodate some, but still not give up everything on what makes you, how you approach conflict. But so that's where I think it's like degrees, right? I think of things lately. I've been landing in this world of most everything in our life is best viewed as a dynamic of a bell curve. We got a whole lot of room in the middle to stay in the norm and be okay and be moving the ball forward. But if we go on the extremes, either way, it's problematic.
That's right. Yeah, you have that. I don't know if you're familiar with Terry Real's work, but one of the he does these 4 quadrants where he talks about enmeshment and avoidance, right? And that we want to be basically in the middle. So avoidant, right? You're overly emphasizing your autonomy, right? And so you put that before your connection, and enmeshment, you're sort of terrified to have any autonomy. And so you're always overemphasizing the connection and kind of anxiously attached, right? Is the other way to say it. And we want to be in the middle, and we want to try and meet our partners where they are. And we want to look at what's our growing edge, right? If I'm someone who feels totally overwhelmed every time my partner comes to talk to me about something, is there a way I can orient myself to be brave, right? And kind of to step up into that. And then of course, if I kind of dump onto my partner and want them to pick up all the pieces for me, that's not okay either, right? How can I get myself really grounded before I approach my partner so that it feels more collaborative, not just like, here's all this baggage I'm going to give to you to hold. Yeah. But I think you're so right that we find our opposite, and then we struggle together, right? And hopefully come out on the other side both stronger. But it's you always find that yin yang. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and that's my response to any time that comes out and is labeled in the sense that they do it this way, I do it this way. My immediate reaction to that all the time is, well, you're perfect for each other then.
That's right. Yeah.
because if sometimes it doesn't make sense if it's too same, and there's no real good tension then. Because that's the difference is what I hear from what you're describing and what I know of you. the tension isn't necessarily about who wins. It's about the tension of both of us being better to approach what we each want and need
Right.
or desire without giving up myself too much to try to accomplish, civility or calmness or get my needs covertly.
Right. No, we're looking for it. Yeah, not right and wrong, always growth. Right?
Yeah.
Are we growing together? Are we able to hold empathy for ourselves and for our partner at the same time? Right? That to me is the absolute top of emotional maturity is to, and that's a lot of work. And even if we reach it, we often don't sustain it. Right? We have to keep grounding ourselves.
Yeah. So talk to me about, I was looking over some of your stuff, and there was the wording in there of love bombing and gaslighting. Explain those, because I think those are going to be on the negatives. So what?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Very, very gaslighting. I know very well, but love bombing. Tell me what you mean.
Yeah. So love bombing, I first came across the term reading about cults and how cults bring in new members. And it's this idea of, I'm the only one who really sees you. No one else understands you.
Okay.
Those people are jealous. You are so special and I'm so special and we can be so special together. We are more special than other people, right? It's so you can see how it's both flattery and pulling that person away from maybe their other support system. And this idea of creating like a bubble around us, like it's you and I against the world. No one else understands. And very often, as you can imagine, that leads into a pretty abusive, unhealthy relationship, right? So I think whenever it's such a red flag, because whenever, it's what's hard about love bombing is it's just normal enough that I think it's easy to be kind of mesmerized by it, because often when we fall in love, of course, there's a period where you're flooded with all of the love hormones and you're thinking, this is the person. We are special. It is only
soulmates.
us, right? And
we got it. Yeah.
Right. And some of that's beautiful and special. And it's like, by all means, enjoy it. But it can, if you feel like you're being pulled away from your support system, if you're being encouraged to think of yourself as separate from other people who've always been in your life, and the idea that it's really about isolation, right? It's like isolation through flattery and adoration, and it's unhealthy because what the goal is from the person who is love bombing us is where you get kind of addicted to feeling like you're seen in that way, and then start to let a lot of bad behavior slide. And then eventually, oftentimes those relationships can turn pretty dark and scary. So,
yeah. And that's where I think one of the things that's a marker of that is, as you're describing, because it's perfect sense because you've isolated. And so you've eliminated a lot of your other social circles that are meant to be good supports, family, friends, peers, neighbors, etc., where you're not,
right.
I don't think anybody thrives in just one system alone in their life. We need multiple systems that are meeting our needs on the various levels as appropriate.
Yes.
To where, because even what's happened some in the West, it seems like where American marriage, spouses are putting more requirements on the other spouse than ever before.
Yeah.
For their emotional needs, their financial needs, everything. And it's like, wait, that's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we aren't meant to get all of our needs met from one person, right? And it's also, if we think of like the rich tapestry of life, right? It is in community and is in,
right.
It's in friends and wider family and whatever your networks are. And I also think of it as like when we see our partner in those other environments, oftentimes we kind of fall in love with that part of them again, right? So not only is it bringing more people into it, it's seeing these different parts of our partner in a way that I think can also be invigorating and energizing. I know in the pandemic, I had so many couples say to me that they were pretty sick of their partner, right? When it's like the only person you're isolated with.
Yep.
And then once people could go out again and seeing them in there with their friends or in a work environment, it was like, oh yeah, this is this special person, that I've gotten too used to and taken for granted. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when Pam and I went on our very first month-long trip with our kids that we did for 5-6 years in a row. Oh, wow. One of the drives home, because we were in a fifth wheel in a truck, right? So we're all four together for a month.
Fantastic.
And on one of the drives home, we're about 3-4 hours from home. And I look at her and she just has this look on her face. And I'm like, so what are you thinking about? And she's like, I'm really excited to go to work tomorrow. And I'm like, really? Why? To get away from you guys. And it was actually a very loving statement because it's like, me too. Really, we all need some space from each other, I think.
Totally. And think about the foundation that allows that statement in a marriage and that you immediately got it, right? You immediately got, she wants to go into this other role where she has all this competence. She wants to be with new people. She wants to feel like she's more than a mom and a spouse, and the fact that you were just like, oh, I totally get it.
She's labeling what I was thinking too, not at that particular moment, but at points of the drive, I was absolutely thinking, yes, you guys all got to get away from me for a little while.
Please.
Too.
Goodbye.
So what are some things that people should be looking out for? Because I think that there might be some people that listen to this and think of, okay, wait, I might be in this situation. I might be the one being bombed, or I might be the bomber. So because recognizing, seeing something is the first step to be able to change it.
That's right.
So what's some best steps?
I think that certainly any awareness that you have that you are being isolated is our relationships are supposed to help us grow, right? And there should be room in our relationships for the other people that we love, especially in a long relationship. So if you feel like you're being isolated or you're noticing that suddenly things feel mistrustful with people you've always trusted, if your family is worried about you, I feel like when you're young, you're told, it doesn't matter what your friends think, whatnot. Well, if your friends love you and you trust them, it matters what your friends think, right? Because if they want what's best for you and they're worried, I think that is very, very important to take that seriously.
Right. And this is also one of those things that it would be like recognizing I've got a spouse that won't let me go see my family because they don't like my family. And so therefore I can't go at all, meaning we can't go at all. So it's in what I'm hearing you say in this one would be, well, then I just go. They don't have to join me. I go.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would take it a little bit further and say that part of being in a relationship is showing up for your partner when they want you there. And certainly if it's all weekend, every weekend with the partner's family, then you have to set some expectations around that.
Right.
But this idea that your partner doesn't want to be involved in important areas of your life, I say, get thee to couples counseling because that's a very bad sign. Okay. Certainly. And then on the other side of it, the idea that you need to sort of keep someone for yourself, or if you feel threatened by your partner's other relationships, that's a great opportunity for growth for you, right? And a great opportunity to look at what is that about? What is it in me that makes me feel like I need to control the environment in order to feel safe? And what is it about my history that has me feeling like I need to kind of get rid of the competition, right? Or pare down, or that I need my partner to prove their love to me. And that is, it's hard to look at ourselves and say, oh, we are being toxic. We're the toxic person, right? What a horrible thing, because often we think we don't want to be that person. We love our partner. Another thing you find often is people feeling like, well, no, actually, I'm the victim because if he didn't do that or she didn't do that, I wouldn't have to act this way. So certainly, if you hear this stuff coming out of your mouth, like, please, there's so many group programs that can help. Journaling can help, certainly therapy. And anyone who wants to change can change, right? We can change right up to the moment of our last breath. So, you don't have to give up on relationships, but you do have to take responsibility for your behavior always.
Perfect. All right. So let's pivot and do gaslighting real quick as well, because I think these are two big ones that are very, very insidious in relationships.
So gaslighting, I think gaslighting is actually overused currently. And confusing. So gaslighting is this idea that, your partner will come to you and say what they're feeling or their experience or what they saw. And you say, that's not true. No, I didn't. That's not what happened. And the tricky part is that sometimes, of course, we really just see things differently, right? Because we're two different people. And so classical gaslighting is really doing it basically to, not take responsibility for yourself and to deny your partner's experience. And when it goes extremely abusive, extremely toxic, it's like you're trying to make them crazy, right? It's based on an old Ingmar Bergman movie where the husband is trying to convince his wife that she's a kleptomaniac, and right? I mean, so it's a very extreme, its origin.
Right.
So, there has to be room for more than one truth in a relationship. And if that's not being allowed by either partner, then you're veering off a healthy course with your relationship.
Right.
And with gaslighting in particular, you can say, I feel like my truth is being denied here, and we need a new way of talking about this. And a partner who's flexible and healthy and open will be able to make that pivot. A partner who is trying to control the relationship, again, which is where you get toxicity, will be defensive, will get angry, deny, maybe feel guilty, but just keep popping around that triangle instead of trying to connect and understand where you're coming from.
And they can also just even throw more gas on it and just keep amping it up and amping it up and amping it up.
Yeah. And, I have couples come in, or I'll have individual clients who say, this relationship makes me feel crazy. And then the question is, do most relationships make you feel crazy or just this one? Right. Because if it's just this one, life is short, right? We don't want to be made to feel crazy in our relationships. So that's
it's one of those things that has to be addressed. And like you're describing, when I can do it in my sphere from, with standing on my own 2 feet, because one of the things I've come across before is gaslighting can get met by gaslighting. And then it's whose truth gets to win out, which that's incredibly volatile.
100%.
But it is recognizing, wait, I can orient towards this better, like you're describing, and ask some better questions, or ask myself better questions of, wait, am I off in my stance here?
That's right. Yeah.
Is my truth accurate? Because if it is, I don't need confirmation from somebody for that still to be true for me.
And I encourage couples. I have an exercise I do with people in my office quite a bit. If I feel like they're stuck in their stances of, having someone share their experience and hopefully from a vulnerable place, and then having the partner say back to them, this is what I'm hearing that was like for you, right? As vulnerable as possible. And then what am I missing, right? Because there is more than one truth in every situation. There's more than two. And so to have space for that in the relationship is the only way we have healthy communication.
Right. Yeah. Because that's all based on our filters, our skews, our experiences of life, and how we make sense of it.
How we make our narratives. Exactly.
Right. Because that's the old adage of, there's 3 of us that could all go out and watch a movie and then go have coffee afterwards. And we're talking about the movie, and it could sound like we all saw 3 different movies.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Right. Okay. So Tonya, before we transition, how can people transition into the extended content? How can people find you?
I've been posting quite a bit on Instagram. So that's Tonya Lester Psychotherapy is my handle there. And my website is tonyalester.com. And I have, I just put up a quiz that I hope people find interesting. I have, are you difficult? Are you impossible? Or are you a shock absorber? Which is my 3 distinctions that I have in my book. And the idea is, are you a healthy, difficult person? Are you an impossible person, which probably needs no more explanation, or are you a shock absorber?
Self-defined. Yeah.
Yeah. Where shock absorbers, of course, take on too much responsibility for managing those around you. So yeah, I'd love it if people checked out the website and took the quiz. That would be terrific.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.